Hey folks, Post here, welcome back to another Poem Masters video, and I haven't done one of these videos for this month yet, but we'll get into it, right? And we did have, well, let me fly across the screen first. Oh, there we go. We're gonna rank the units this month, and we did get a lot of fantastic units this month, right? A lot of, and not just new units, but also old units coming back with either synchronids or 6-star EXs, right? And again, like, I am, we're just ranking this for fun, but I do want to mention, like, probably, like, spot number 1 to, like, at least 6 are all top tier units. Like, none of these are, like, bad or whatever. Like, even the ones after are still really good. So I do want to put that caveat in mind, right? Like, even, like, number 6 on this list is still, like, extremely top tier, right? And, because, again, like, all these, like, even the reruns, like, fantastic new units, like Bianca, Alder, right? And then we got, like, reruns, with synchro expansions, like Olivia, whoops, didn't mean to move you, Blue and all that stuff, right? So, yeah, obviously, Steven, Cynthia coming back with the 6-star EXs as well. But, yeah, let's get into this, then. So, let's start from the top, right? In my opinion, this month's best unit overall, right? All things accounted for, it's Steven. Steven's just incredible, right? Steven's, like, probably the best striker right now overall, right? Just in general. This guy's, like, crazy. Like, heals on sync, right? Haymaker on, like, huge, good stats. Hits pretty hard too, right? And Iron Head with aggravation, super high chance of flinch. This thing's insanely good. And now with the 6-star EX, it turns the sync nuke into an AoE sync nuke. Just when you think this, Steven wouldn't get any better, he just gets so much better, right? So this is, I think it's pretty hard to dispute this, right? Even among strikers, probably, like, still, up there, right? The best. Among the best there is. That's his thing, right? Wasn't that his trainer move? Wasn't that what it was called? Let's see. What is the synchron? Oh my god. On my screen right now. I don't even know. Where's Metagross? Is that what it's called? Yeah, best there is. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, as you could, obviously tell, Steven, very good, right? It's just, like, there really isn't anything he's, like, okay, I guess he's not, like, extremely great in co-op without supports, but then again, like, co-op's not the matter, we're not really talking about co-op, but outside of that, like, in almost everywhere, like, he's, like, every single legendary arena, you could easily clear with Steven, like, on auto. Like, that's just how crazy this thing is, right? So anyways, it's pretty much established, right? I've seen probably this one. For the number 2 spot, it's going to be an extremely hot take for me personally. Not sure if a lot of people are going to agree with this, but again, this is just my personal take. A very spicy take. And I think the second best unit this month is Bianca. So, hear me out. I know, what the heck? Oh, Bianca better than Cynthia or whatever, Alder, Blue, all that's... I know, again, like I mentioned before, a lot of fantastic units this month, right? But I do think Bianca is probably the second best overall. And spoiler alert, like, Cynthia's third one over here, right? And here's a few reasons why I'm not putting Cynthia higher than Musharna. Cynthia's still, obviously fantastic. Her damage is insane. Her damage, like, is insanely high, right? And she has good, defensive stats, right? With sand screen, all that stuff, healing sands. She's incredibly fast as well, which is very nice for a striker. Cynthia does everything just fantastic. However, the one thing that kind of shafted her a bit is the 6-star EXs, right? 6-star EXs as a concept overall is not very friendly to Cynthia, unfortunately. AoE sync moves, like, it's just straight up bad for Cynthia because after you go into Mega Card Chomp, you almost never want to use your sync move again, because Earthquake on Cynthia or on Garchomp just does so much damage. It really isn't worth using your sync move at all. And now she has a EX. It's just it doesn't add that much value into like all the other units, right? Like Red, Red even not so much, but stuff like I guess Elisa, Steven, whatever, right? These units that have very very powerful sync moves got like a huge buff from their 6-star EXs, right? Again, all these like Red, like to a lesser extent, but still, right? Who else? I'm blanking on names right now. A Singzu Grimsley, right? A lot of these get like a huge buff from their 6-star EXs, and Cynthia gains almost nothing, which is why I put, which is why I think the gap between it used to be, in my opinion, like Cynthia and like Red and Steven and Summer Steven and all of them were relatively close. But now I do think the gap's slightly widened a bit between them, just because again, 6-star EXs are just so much more beneficial to like like Steven, right? But again, Cynthia's still fantastic, right? Now on to Musharna. Musharna is insanely good. If you guys haven't seen already, might be one of the most underrated units in the game at the moment. Psychic Terrain, first of all, is just really really good, right? Psychic Terrain, on its own, right? 1.5 times for 1.5 times buff for psychic type attacks is already good enough, right? If you're using her just as like a terrain setter, it's already very 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 good. However, she has so much more to offer outside of that, right? She has like double heals, right? Hidden heal on psychic terrain and weird recovery, double heals in psychic terrain. She has extra 50% on your special defense in psychic terrain, right? Which, with already like super high special defensive stat, right? Once you have that up, that's like over 300 special defense, right? And even though she has pretty bad speed, she makes up for it with pre-recognition 2, charges move gauge quickly in psychic terrain, and unlike Volkner, who unfortunately only has MP Refresh 2 on electric terrain, she actually does have like an actual good MP Refresh, which is MP Refresh 3, much more reliable over there, right? On top of that, she has 1 for 2 to 3 for a percent chance of randomly decreasing whatever stat on your opponent. And then her stored power 2 gauge move hits like an absolute truck, and especially since she gives herself like really really good stat buffs anyways, because like her trainer move buffs once psychic terrain is up, right? Her trainer move buffs three different stats by 2, and you can use it twice. So like that on top of stored power is amazing, and like it's not like psychic's bad either, right? Psychic doesn't do as much damage to stored power, but psychic does have that extra honor roll 4 to decrease the opponent's special defenses, and when their opponent's special defenses are decreased to a certain extent, you also have Brain Teaser, which powers up moves by another extra 30%, right? Like she hits extremely hard, low maintenance, right? Sets up psychic terrain for your teammates, can tank. It could do so many things, right? It could debuff, like it's. Yeah, and like psychic teams are already super super strong, right? You got like, obviously Sabrina still among top, one of the top units in the game, right? You got Caitlyn, who's not bad, and then you got free to play options like Mew and Mewtwo, who are also still very very good, right? Mewtwo got completely saved by Musharna, right? Because Mewtwo used to have relatively bad damage, but now with that extra 50% boost on psychic terrain, Mewtwo could actually do some really really good damage now, right? Which is fantastic. So that's why I do think Musharna's probably the second best unit that we're getting this month. But I still think Steven is better, because Steven just is like, Steven's such a machine. Like, he just does everything so well, right? But again, very very hot take from myself. But I do think Bianca is really just that good. Moving on to the next spot, I think number 4, the fourth best unit here, I think is Alder. I've actually been kind of debating between Alder and like the next few spots, but I think Alder is probably better. I don't think he's as good as Cynthia though, because well, Cynthia's damage just like nuts, out of this world, right? Um, Garchomp's damage is just like overwhelming, right? And then on top of that, again, just the fantastic like stats, all around and all that stuff, right? And then the extra stuff that she gets on her sync grid, right, with like sand screen, soothing sand, all that stuff. The extra speed, like she's just so good, right? However, Alder, I find very very fantastic as well, right? Because not only do you have, it's kind of like Dragonite. Alder is like Dragonite, except like, well, Alder does have like good like self buffs, which are nice, right? Fantastic Dire Hit Plus, unparalleled power, right? You get easily max that out, and yeah, there really aren't too many downsides to Alder at all, right? You get Rejuvenate 6 on your passive, so you don't have to worry about your Hyper Beam move gauges, all that stuff, and you have good speed too, right? Good speed that also gets sharply raised by yourself. Um, it's just like, it's overall a much easier to use Dragonite. That obviously you don't have Dragonite's insanely high stats, offensively, right? But it's much more easier to maintain, and you could also get some really, really, really good extra multipliers with both Overpower and Devastation, right? So yeah, again, do need a bit more setup on the opponent's side, right? But quite a devastating unit, I think. Just like raw power, it's just really, really nice. Moving on to the next one. I do think the next one, I think next one's blue, and Olivia's the one afterward, right? Just gonna spoiler alert. As to why I put blue over Olivia over here, it's mainly because blue has a 6 REX and Olivia doesn't. If Olivia has a 6 REX, it's like game over, right? Olivia's 6 REX is gonna be like insanely powerful. The reason why blue, in my opinion, wouldn't be better than Olivia with a 6 REX is just because, like, I think blue, if we take away the 6 REX, all that stuff, right, from both units, I think blue is an overall better unit, right, on many accounts, right? If I could find it, there it is, Pidgeot. Blue does, first of all, like, just insane amounts of damage with Hurricane, especially now, like, if you could also activate, like, Harry 5, which isn't, like, extremely hard to activate, right? There's so many fantastic flinchers in this game. Like, Harry 5 really isn't that hard to activate, honestly, right? Brutal Clarity much harder, but Harry 5 relatively, like, the Hurricane damage is insane. This guy's, like, stats overall are just really, really, really good, right? And the grid does fix, like, so many things with blue, right? Which is fantastic, for the most part. Unfortunately, his 6 REX kind of sucks. His 6 REX doesn't really do much. It's an AoE sync move, but like his sync isn't like extremely powerful. Like, it's not bad, but it's like it's not, you don't have any multipliers on it, right? The only ones you have, like, it's just like straight damage ups, which you probably wouldn't really take, just because like your Hurricane does so much damage. You probably would be better off investing into your Hurricanes instead of your sync move damage anyways. So, like, Blue's 6 REX is kind of useless, in comparison to, like, if Olivia does get a 6 REX, right? If Olivia gets a 6 REX, that's very, very, very powerful, because Olivia, on top of, the insanely high physical attack, she also picks up inertia, which is insane, right? But she doesn't have it yet, and that's why I do think Blue's probably better, because at base, I do think blue is an overall better unit, right? But hey, if or when, I guess it's not if, because everyone's getting a 6 REX eventually, when Olivia does pick up that 6 REX, things could change drastically, right? So, anyways, moving on to the next unit on this list, I probably put Licia over here. Licia, like, she's good, but there are some flaws, in my opinion, in her system that I'm not, like, 100% behind, right? And I do think this is where like the gap is for this month, right? There's a gap over here and there's a gap over here, and we all know what that gap at the end there is, right? Um, so here's the thing with Alicia, right? Alicia does like a lot of things fantastically. Um, she tanks relatively well, right? Which is nice. Her AoE flinch on Twister is fantastic as well, right? She has a decent sync move for like a mega, and she could do good damage because once she megas as a tech unit, she gets like 407 special attack, right? And she hits like two different types for super effective, like Moonblast and Dragon Pulse, either Dragon or Fairy, super effective. And on top of that, she has Defog, which could remove terrain effects on the opponent's field, right? Lowers evasion, all that stuff. However, here's one thing that I'm not a huge fan of. She could do good damage, right? But it's kind of hard, right? It's kind of hard for her to do like insane amounts of damage. And here's what I mean. Her multipliers are bad. She doesn't like her. She has high multipliers. I'm not saying the numbers are bad. The numbers are very, very good. It's just relatively hard to achieve on all these multipliers. HP trade-off is terrible. HP trade-off is really bad. Because you don't want to put yourself in that situation. Granted, Altaria is very, very tanky and is not extremely dangerous in those scenarios, much better than most units in the game. But it's still not a really good position that you want to put yourself in. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you have like lower HP. This is kind of like Power Reserve, but more consistent, I guess, slightly, because like you don't have to be in a pinch for it to activate. You could just take like one hit or two, like you can still have like over 50% of your HP and still activates, but obviously to a lower extent, right? I just wish he had better multipliers. Like Harry 5 again, or not Harry 5, Harry 3. This is her most easy, like, or this is might be her most reliable multiplier, and it's still not like that reliable, right? Again, a lot of great flinches in the game, but it's still not like extremely reliable. Wide open is not good. And again, HP trade-off we talked about. But outside of that, again, fantastic unit overall, right? She, nothing in the game really does what she does, right? Which is very fantastic and extremely unique, right? Which is why she's so good. And again, being like number 7 in this month doesn't mean you're bad, right? Still fantastic. So, next one, we only have 3 units left. I do want to say I'd put Rosanta higher than Sebald. Even though Rosanta is slightly more niche. Not slightly more, much more niche, right? However, it doesn't have to be niche. Obviously, she has a lot of like hail stuff that makes her like fantastic, right? But you don't need her to be fantastic, right? You could just go, all the presents, shared fortune, and then like whatever, some other stuff, Revenge Boost 4 or whatever, right? Stoic 4, a lot of like non-hail stuff that can still make her really, really good, right? Her base kit's already like good enough, right? Just picking up those MP refreshes for all the presents, for where's X attack all, right? And that's basically, you got some really, really good stuff over there, right? Team speedy entry, that's not bad either, right? It'd be overkill for your move gauge regen with all the presents and all that, but still good regardless, right? And obviously once you put in her into a hail team, it's like GG, right? It's just very, 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 very powerful. And the reason why I put C, almost said bad, but not bad anymore, slightly lower, is he's just not a huge deal. Like, you guys saw the videos, all that stuff, like fantastic, right? Much better now. And it's just like what he does is not, he's like the opposite of Lucia, right? Does a lot of great stuff still. It's just not unique enough. right? Great sync nuker. But it's a water sync nuker, and we have Barry for that. We got Sharpedo for that. Sharpedo. And Chris is still a water sync nuker as well, right? Guys still remember. So nothing extremely unique enough. You could burn the opponent, which is great, right? But then you got Torkoal, that's a much better burner. And then you still got accuracy down, and Helios is a better accuracy debuffer. Again, Octillery has all those on one unit, which is nice, and that's why again Octillery's not bad. Right? It's a very bulky unit that could do a lot of damage. And oh, by the way, I did see some folks mentioning, oh well, Barry has about the same bulk as Octillery. Well, no, I wasn't referring to the stats. Obviously, they're relatively similar in terms of the stats, right? But Octillery does buff his own defenses by quite a decent amount, right? Both X special defense and +4 on the trainer move, and on top of that, he could burn, right? And obviously, burn decreases the opponent's physical damage by half, unless they have like some sort of lesser burn, right? And also decrease the opponent's accuracy. Like, again, a lot of great stuff on this unit. If you want to say like Seabold's better than Rosa, I wouldn't really argue with you either. It's just very more different situations, right, that you use them on. And obviously, poor guy at the bottom of the list, Nate could have seen much more potential. Like, Nate, he has some good stuff on his grid. Like, he really does. Like, Inertia's great, right? Inertia's very, very good. And Quick Combo 3 is a fantastic passive for someone who has quick moves, right? This is an absolutely fantastic passive. Powerflux 3 on the passive, that's great as well, right? He maxes out his crit, maxes out his physical attack, right? All that stuff. A lot of really, really good stuff. Powerflux 2 extra on the grid. A lot of great stuff on Nate. Had a lot of potential, especially, again, Inertia with that AoE sync nuke at 6 REX, right? Unfortunately, everything gets ruined by his attacking moves being Aerial Ace and Fly, and like his abysmal stats. It's sad. Like, there's so many great things about him, and there's just the bad. The good just doesn't override the bad, unfortunately. It just doesn't. It doesn't. And it's sad. It really is. I hope they buff him in the future. I hope they really do buff him. Because again, a lot of promise. It's just the numbers aren't good enough. The numbers are not there, unfortunately. And I sincerely hope he gets better in the future. But at the moment, there's almost no point in getting him unless you're a big Nate fan. Even for like time trial event, there's no point in picking this guy up. You're just better off going with a blue instead, right? And those planners are up at the same time, so anyways, well, that's me with this one, I guess. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know guys think in the comments down below. Like and enjoy this video on our channel for some more Pokemon Masters content. I'll see you guys in the next one.